So tonight I'm going to be talking about a freshwater project here in Colorado, and I'm going to be talking about the Northern Redbelly Dace Recovery Project. And our partners in this project, thank you very much, is the Audubon Society of Greater Denver. So we're very grateful for your partnership. My organization, Ocean First Institute, we worked with Boulder County Parks and Open Space, the Innovation Center, which is in Longmont, Colorado, and that is a center where students from Longmont and Boulder County can come and learn all about different innovations, including our project, which was housed at the Innovation Center in Longmont. It's about a $50 million building that was built from a bond. So it's an incredible place. If you've never been there, you should definitely go and check it out. We also had partnership with Colorado Parks and Wildlife. Boulder County Parks and Open Space Foundation helped fund this. We're partners with the Denver Zoo. We had 4 master's students from the University of Colorado Boulder helping us with our project. Left Hand Watershed, Lions High School, and CSU were all foundational partners in this project. All right. So I'll give you a little bit of introduction into the project. So this is a collaborative project that's been about 4 years in its execution. And really the whole idea behind it was to reintroduce a species that is endangered in Colorado, and that is the Northern Redbelly Dace. And so this project has encompassed all of our partners and stakeholders and really had a focus on students and having students have the opportunity to work alongside biologists in the field. And our hope and our goal was truly to be able to introduce students to nature and also to introduce students to career possibilities in the natural sciences. For me, that's a huge passion and something that I believe very strongly in. And so the partnership with all of the organizations was really an entree for students to be able to understand and work alongside biologists, scientists, teachers to really understand how they could be part of the solution for conservation. So just a little background about the project. So I'm sure many of you were here during our flood that happened in 2013. And that flood, as we all are hopefully aware, was really devastating to Boulder County. However, one of the opportunities that came from that devastation was really what started this project. And so in Boulder County, there is a place called Pella Crossing, and there is a series of ponds in Pella Crossing, and one of those is Webster Pond. And when the flood came through, this was a deep pond that had been stocked for game fish, for fishers. And when the flood came through, it brought silt and debris, and it really filled this deep pond. And Boulder County evaluated after the flood, what kind of restoration opportunities would there be? What were they going to do about this change in the habitat? And they decided that instead of trying to dig out this deep pond as it once was, it was now a shallow area because of the flood, and they decided to allow this to be a shallow wetland. They wanted to restore it so that it could be a place for native fish for restoration. So this is really how this project was born. And so the recovery was in Webster Pond to allow native fish to be restored and recovered. And that species that was chosen was the Northern Redbelly Dace. And so that's what you're looking at here. You can see these are minnows that are the size of your finger. And these are species that Boulder County decided they wanted to have a restoration project for. And so that's how this project started. So again, why this fish? Well, this fish is a tier 1 species of greatest conservation need, according to Colorado Parks and Wildlife, who is one of our partners. This fish has a distribution across the entire United States. However, in Colorado, it only has one population that persists. And the reasons why this species has declined include things like habitat fragmentation, Also, a warming environment. There is a really interesting part of this project that I'll talk a little bit about, and that is that this fish needs the ability to go up into higher altitudes where there's cooler water. And so we did an entire restoration project with Boulder County on reconnecting the St. Vrain River in an area that has not been connected since before the Civil War. And that was a really big part of laying the groundwork for this fish to be able to occupy the areas that it needs to in order to successfully be reintroduced. This fish also is really a sentinel for biodiversity. This is a species that used to persist here, is no longer here in abundance. And so it really is part of our drive for sustaining and preserving biodiversity. It also is a part of ecosystem resilience. If we can introduce this fish and have it take off, this is a really important part of the ecosystem health. And lastly, reintroducing this fish was a huge educational opportunity for students in Colorado, again, as I mentioned, to work alongside with biologists, scientists, and teachers to really understand the value of conservation. So this is the fish. These are, again, a Colorado state endangered fish that have a range across North America, yet only one population remains here in Colorado. And this is a collaborative partnership to try to reintroduce this fish and have students working with, as I mentioned, biologists and teachers to safely spawn the next generation of northern red-belly dace. And you can see there the fish are above a mat, that black area there. So they're spawning right there. They lay eggs. Those eggs hatch and then turn into baby fish called fry. And the fry then were grown out to be reintroduced back into Webster Pond. And eventually the goal was to be able to have them return to Colorado rivers and really bolster the wild populations. So one spring at a time, which is when they reproduce, we are, having these fish parent future generations. And so what was the purpose of the project? It was really to, again, restore Webster Pond. So these are native plants that are being reintroduced into, again, this area that was devastated from the flood. So Boulder County went ahead and did native plantings to, again, put this into a shallow wetland area that could be conducive to the restoration of these fish. And then our goal was to, and what we did is we went to Alamosa, Colorado, where there is a native fish hatchery, and we were able to obtain 40 individual adults from which we would then get eggs as they reproduced in those mats that you just saw to be our brood stock to then use for eggs and for the grow out. And then we would use those fish then to be released back into the wild. And one of the goals was to then look at the efficiency of the restoration, to record the presence of these fish, to make sure that our efforts were successful by collecting data from the release sites. So one of the proudest, I think, moments in this project was that students were really at the heart of it and at the center of it. And when I say students, I'm talking about high school students, as well as master's students that helped us from University of Colorado in Boulder. And so this is a high school student at one of our release dates. She's holding just a couple of fish that we were using as a showcase. When we do these releases, we invite the public, and it's a huge celebration for all of the work that all of the students, teachers, biologists have put into rearing and getting these fish ready to be released back into the wild. So the sites that we released our fish in, there were 3. One, and there's a long story behind this, and I can't go into it tonight, but essentially Webster Pond, for our year 1, we had COVID, and COVID really threw a wrench into our plans. The very 1 week before COVID hit, we got the fish in school into schools. And then all of the schools shut down. And so I ended up having to take all of the fish and the tanks into my basement in my house, where we spent almost a year raising thousands of fish in my basement, which was quite amazing. So when we wanted to release the fish back into Webster Pond as anticipated, the pond was full of predators, and because we couldn't clear out the predators because of COVID. So we had to have an alternative release site, and we did that thankfully from one of the parents of one of the schools. And that is Rooney Pond. And so we have Rooney Pond, we have Webster Pond, and then we also have another property in Longmont called Hep Pond. And these three have been our release sites for the fish back into the wild. We're hoping to have additional release sites in the future. And then the last wild population, the little black dot there, is in Plum Creek, which is by Castle Rock, Colorado. And so monitoring the success of the releases and prior to the releases was really critical. And one of the most essential components of this is really looking at water quality. And I'll talk about why Audubon has been such an amazing partner for us in just a few moments, but water quality is paramount. Making sure that the water in the tanks is similar to the water in the environment as we begin to prepare for releases, and monitoring the sites year-round to look for changes in the habitat. So that's been a really big thing. We also did pit tagging. So these are passive integrated transducers. The idea is that we put these tags, they're almost like microchips, that you put into dogs and cats. We put these into fish, and that allows us to track their movements. And when I mentioned the connectivity of the St. Vrain River, this is the way that we demonstrated that connection between the St. Vrain that hadn't occurred since before the Civil War. We created a fish ladder, which allowed for fish to move into these northern and higher altitude areas of the river. We did that by demonstrating that the fish were moving by tagging them and having receivers that allowed us to identify those fish. So that was a really big part of this project. We also did visual surveys. We used GoPro cameras underwater to confirm the presence of the fish after we did the releases. And then we have another technique that we use, that I use in other research that I do on sharks, and that's called eDNA. So every living animal has DNA inside, and that is unique to that species. And so what we can do is collect the water from the sites where these animals have been released, and we can collect water samples and then have that water go through basically a paper filter. And then we can take that paper filter back to the laboratory where we can extract the DNA of animals that have their cells shed, things like feces, urine, the fish mucus layer on fish that contains DNA. And so we can get a positive match to say, yes, this animal has been here in this water. And that's an additional tool that we use to be able to say, yes, we do have successful reintroduction and persistence of these fish in these ponds. And so that's a very valuable tool that we've been utilizing. So why is this important? Why is this work important? Well, it's really interesting for me because this is a novel approach to conservation in our minds, in that we are utilizing high school students with professionals in the field to try to restore a Colorado state endangered fish. And so, this is where our students, scientists, and our community come together to save an endangered species in our very own backyard. And then this brings me back to a quote, which is really sort of the centerpiece of my organization, and that is by Baba Diem. And it is, in the end, we will conserve only what we love only what we understand, and we will understand only what we are taught. And I feel like that is really sort of the encapsulating idea behind conservation and trying to get the community involved in these types of projects. And this goes all the way down to creating community events behind these fish, getting people to understand why a minnow is worth saving and why a minnow would be worth all of the effort that we put into it, all of the time and effort. So we have things like coloring pages that were created by artists to highlight the northern red-bellied dace. We have had Dace days at the Denver Zoo where we've engaged with thousands of people in the public to try to understand the story of these fish and why they're important, which has been incredible to have the Denver Zoo and their platform of their membership to really help us spread the message. And as silly as it is, we have stuffed animal dace. This is Boyd Wright, who's a biologist with Colorado Parks and Wildlife, who was really instrumental in helping us launch this project and secure the adult fish that helped us to have all of the thousands of fish that we got. In addition to the work, it's really exciting to have acknowledgements, and we've had several awards, both local, both national and international for this project, which makes us all very happy to receive these awards. And several of the awards went to students that were involved in this project, which to me is the best type of award to be given. And these awards included the Colorado Open Space Alliance Blue Grandma Award, the National Association of Counties Award, the Colorado Association of Environmental Educators Award. We received funding for several years from Boulder County Parks and Open Space Foundation, also from the Denver Zoo, and from the Lauren Townsend Memorial Wildlife Grant. And I would also like to acknowledge and thank Audubon Society of Greater Denver. They gifted us something that was incredibly valuable to the project, and that was funds to allow us to purchase what's called a YSI. And a YSI is an instrument that allows us to collect water quality parameters very easily. We were spending so much time doing literally titrations and trying to do water quality through very non-techie means. And so to be able to get this instrument and to be able to take water quality measurements in the tanks where the fish were and out into the field in our release sites was a game changer. And so we were incredibly grateful to be able to have this gift from Audubon, and we're grateful for that. It was instrumental in allowing us to really do the work that we needed to do and to engage students in the process of collecting and recording data. And here's a student in the field using that YSI, which was fantastic. And again, that's what the YSI looks like. And those are all of the different parameters that we collect when we go out into the field. And this is the release video that I'd like to share with you. And it just showcases what
Today is the day. We are here to bag up our northern red-bellied dace endangered fish and release them back into the wild. We're here today at Webster Pond in Boulder Open Space, and we are so excited to release the northern red-bellied dace into this native fish habitat.
We have been working all summer long to raise these guys from eggs to where they are now. So I am a very proud mother, and this is a very exciting day for all of us.
I just want to thank all the youth who are involved, the ones who will be driving the wheel of change for conservation and for inspiring communities to save wildlife for future generations.
It was twofold. We moved about 4,000 pounds of sport fish out of here.
Robotics, electronics, design, fabrication, these are all the things they're learning.
I'm proud to say that this is the first step towards recovering something that without our dedication to it may be lost.
Conservation is love because it's looking towards the future and it's doing something that's bigger than ourselves. So today is a celebration of all of that hard work, and it is an opportunity for these endangered species to go out into the wild and to not only survive, but to thrive.
3, 2, 1. Thank you, Mikki.
Oh, you're welcome. I just have one last thing to tell you, if that's okay. I'll just take one more second. We love to do the field monitoring, and we will continue to do that for the Northern Redbelly Dace. And as we look towards the future, one of the exciting things is that we are looking at expanding the species that we work on. And so the last thing I will leave you with is that we have now done a project with the northern leopard frog. And the northern leopard frog is housed at the same place, the Innovation Center. And I'm happy to tell you that as of 3 days ago, we have obtained eggs from Boulder County near Superior. And we now have tadpoles of the northern leopard frog, which will grow out to a certain size, and then they will be released back into the wild. And the idea is just that we are trying to help this species, which is also a species of special concern with Colorado Parks and Wildlife, to be able to thrive and to go out and really repopulate. And they are facing many of the same challenges that the northern red-bellied dace are facing. So thank you all so much. I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And if there's any questions, I would love to take them.
Thanks, Mikki. I think this is a really good example of a project that includes both research and education.
You bet.
And I'd like to ask you to start by talking about specific student outcomes on the education part of the project.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had literally, over 100 students involved in this project over the years, many of which who, have won awards, many of which who have given presentations to the governor, to the St. Vrain Valley School District Board of Directors. They have gained speaking skills, they have done presentations, they have written grants. It has been an enormous opportunity for personal growth for these students in ways that, they might not have imagined. And, as we talk about students engaging in nature, many times people think, well, kids are interested in technology and they don't care about nature anymore. Well, we've incorporated a lot of AI and a lot of those technologies in the work we do. And that has been a really attractive force for getting students engaged in the projects like the Northern Red-bellied dace. We do underwater cameras, eDNA, all of those things are very attractive for our students. And so it's been a really great marriage of, connecting to nature, the things that I think my generation had, and connecting students of today.
Thanks. John, do you want to proceed?
Yeah, Mikki, it's an amazingly complex project, very rich in partners. It's pretty amazing. I was wondering, getting back to some of the water quality issues, was it particularly challenging for some of the students amongst all the perhaps decision-making tools they might have had to see how or to really take on what the water quality information was telling them to help with the decision process where they could put the fish back in?
Yeah, it really was an interesting journey because, as I mentioned, some of the predators weren't removed from Webster, so we had to have alternative sites. And, there were some setbacks and there were some decisions that had to be made based on, on what we had available. And we had students literally going to landowners asking for permission to be able to go into some of these new areas. And that was really all based on our understanding of water quality. So they were challenged a little bit in trying to understand what it all meant. But by doing the water quality in the tanks consistently and then going into the field, they could really merge the reality behind, the tanks that we had day to day and the field excursions that we did every a couple of times a month. And so they did learn, and they had spreadsheets and they had to collect the data and they had to enter the data. So it was a great learning experience for them. And many of the students that started with us 3 to 4 years ago are still involved in the project.
Great. Kevin had a question about the dace that you got from the Alamosa hatchery. Are they being used by the state, and being released elsewhere in the state?
Yes, so that's absolutely the goal. So that is the Native Fish Hatchery in Alamosa, and their staff are amazing. And they rear many different species, including the northern red-bellied dace. And because they exist, we were able to get those founding individuals for our project. And their goal, and they do rear thousands of northern red-bellied dace that they are now releasing into the wild, in addition to the ones that we've released. We've released thousands of fish. They also release thousands of fish, and we work together with them to identify the most suitable sites and really where these fish have the best chance in getting a stronghold, so that the populations will continue to grow naturally.
And do you happen to know where they're doing their releases?
So they're doing a lot of their releases up near Fort Collins. They're also doing some releases with Left Hand Watershed. So we've done some releases into some private land up in gosh, I'm trying to think of the name of it. It's Andreas Pond. So there are several sites, and we're working in combination. They've also done thousands of fish into Webster Pond. So we're working in combination to really maximize the spread, if you will, the pots of fish, so that we really don't have all of our eggs in one basket. We really want to try to maximize.
Great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.